Alright, so if you look at the goat, the way it's positioned right now, the lungs, since the head's over there, this is the left side of the body, the lungs would naturally be sitting like this with the heart right in between. Okay? If you notice, the left side of the lungs are a lot smaller than the right side of the lungs. Okay? The right side had this whole another structure up here, whereas the left side, the heart sits there. Okay? So, when we look at our heart, we're going to trace the flow of blood from the body to the heart. So blood comes into the heart through the vena cava, which is this very thin, light, very large vein right here. So if you look, you can actually find the opening to it. And it dumps, okay, right, can y'all see the point of the probe right here? It dumps right in there into the right atrium, okay? The right atrium sits below this kind of purplish structure right here, which is called the right auricle. And if we look in here, we can see my probe made its way into the right atrium. Okay, can all of the cameras see that? So, the right atrium is separated from the right ventricle by the tricuspid or right AV valve. Okay, both of them are correct names for it. Okay, the valve itself is this kind of flap right here. If everyone can see, there's a little flap right up here. And a third one, okay? And that's actually what closes off the right atrium from the right ventricle. When it opens up, blood flows into the right ventricle. Okay, the right ventricle then is going to compress and send blood up into the conus, which is this kind of funnel-like structure, which leads into the pulmonary trunk. Okay, so if we watch, this is the pulmonary trunk. You should be able to see my probe pushing on the walls of it. Okay, our pulmonary trunk flows into the pulmonary arteries. It branches off and goes to all these different parts of the lungs. Okay, so let's go over the lungs real quick since we're talking about them. We have our left lobe, okay, which is this whole side. We have our cranial portion of the lobe, our cranial caudal portion of the lobe, and then our caudal portion of the left lobe. Okay, now going to the right side, it has more parts. We have a cranial aspect of the right lobe. We have a cranial caudal portion of the right lobe. We have a middle portion, okay, which is right here, and then we have our caudal portion. In addition to that, we also have an accessory lobe, which is its own lobe by itself. Okay, so it's neither part left or right, it's its own lobe. Alright, so once blood goes to the lungs, it's then going to go to the alveoli and pick up oxygen. Okay, it depletes itself with CO2 and picks up oxygen, goes back to the heart through the pulmonary veins. So here's one pulmonary vein right here. Pulmonary vein is actually the largest one, dumps straight into the left atrium. Okay, so the left atrium also has an auricle above it called the left auricle. Okay, once blood goes through there, it's then going to dump into the left ventricle through the left AV valve or mitral valve or bicuspid valve. Any of those count. Which y'all can see here, it kind of has the same little flaps in here as the other one, but it only has 2 instead of 3. Alright, you might notice these little cords in here, or heartstrings. These are the chordae tendineae, that's what closes the valves. Okay, those are attached to papillary muscles, which is actually the contraction unit. So once the blood gets into the left ventricle, it then gets pushed out through the aorta. So we're going to push it up. Okay, and you can kind of see right here where my probe's hitting. Okay, so the aorta actually comes up and does a big arch. Can't get it too good, but it comes up right here and does an arch right on the inside of the pulmonary trunk. Okay, it has this pulmonary arch right here where this now turns into the descending or caudal portion, and then we also have our cranial portion right here. So the apex is known as this area right here, which is the tip of the heart. And then we also have one last structure to look at, okay, which is called the chordae tendon, the ligamentum arteriosum. The ligamentum arteriosum is alive in fetuses, or it's open in fetuses, or in utero animals. And what it does is it allows, thank you, a bypass to happen between the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. The reason being is if you think about an animal in vitro, a baby, it obviously doesn't need its lungs, right? Because it's getting all its oxygen from its mom. So what this does is it allows the oxygen, or the blood, to bypass the whole lungs and left side of the heart, so it just goes straight into the aorta. So the blood's still going to go into the right atrium, still going to go into the right ventricle. It's going to come up to the pulmonary trunk, and then it's just going to use this right here. And can everyone see this like little tube right here? I'll kind of pin below it. Okay, can everyone see that tube? Okay, that's a break off from the pulmonary trunk, and it shoots into the aorta right here instead of following the trunk out here. And that just allows the blood to bypass the lungs and heart, because it obviously doesn't have to go to them in the fetus, and goes through circulation.